Hello guys, and welcome to lesson number 2 of the Substance Painter course. And in this one, we'll talk about the very basics of the software. First, we open Substance Painter. And we have this layout, a bit similar to Photoshop, only it has 2 screens. Yours may be different than mine, but in a minute, you'll know how to adjust it yourself. So on the left side of the screen, we have basic tools like paint, erase, projection, polypaint, and so on. A little bit lower, we have tools that help us work between 2 programs, like exporting to Photoshop or Asset Browser of Substance Painter. On the top right corner of the screen, we have a few buttons that help us with the layout of the software. And the most important one is this one, which changes between 3D, 2D only, or both. Then we have a perspective mode button, which changes between perspective and orthographic and camera rotation settings. More to the right, we have a texture set list, which will have different UV maps of your object. Lower, we have layers similar to Photoshop, where you can edit and blend different materials, add masks, and so on. Next to it, we have a texture set settings, and if you click on it, you can see all of these different options that will be available when we import our 3D mesh. On the bottom of the screen, we have our asset menu. So here you can find all kinds of different assets, starting from basic materials, which is this one, to smart materials, smart masks, filters, brushes, alphas, textures, and environments. And lastly, on the right side of the screen at the top, we have settings of display and shaders, then history and logs. All right, we can now import our first 3D object, which you can download from the resource folder of this course. Once you download the project files, the first thing you want to do is go to File, click on New. Here we have our new project settings. Our first selection is Template, so you can choose between different templates. I'm going to leave it just as that, but if you're working with Keyshot or Unreal Engine, we have an option for that. Also down below, there's a file selection. So we're going to select our Rob Low file. For document resolution, I'm going to keep it 4K, but if you have a slower computer, consider lower resolutions. For normal map format, DirectX. And everything else is here. So click OK. And here we have our model imported. So this is a low polygon version of our 3D mesh. And to get all the details that the high poly version has, we have to bake it. Baking is essentially saving information related to a 3D mesh into a texture file bitmap. Most of this time, this process involves another mesh. In this case, the information of the first mesh is transferred onto the second mesh's UVs and then saved into a texture. I provided 2 FBX files, Rob Low and Rob High. They are both the same object and in exactly the same place as the other. But Low has reduced polygon count, which we see here, and High has a lot more details and smoother surfaces. So all of those details in Rob High will be baked into textures and put on Rob Low. So go to Texture Set Settings right here, and scroll down a little bit, and you can see Bake Mesh Maps. So click on that. And in our Baking Settings window, first we have to select our high poly mesh from which Substance Painter will transfer all the details. So right here, let's select our Rob High, open, and let's change the output size to 4K. As before, if you're working with a slower PC, then consider a lower resolution. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. And next is cage file. Essentially, it's the same object, but scaled up, and software uses it to better calculate baked maps. We don't have it, so we won't use it. Max frontal and rear distances we will leave as is. Basically, that's just how far it bakes details from. We leave the boxes checked where it says anti-aliasing. We're going to choose 8x8. You can choose a different one, but it also takes up more time the higher the value. Down below we have match, and I'm going to select by mesh name. And for the suffix, I'm going to delete low and high. Essentially, the low polymesh and high polymesh have the same naming for every part except the suffix, which for the low is low, and for the high polymesh is high. That way, Substance Painter knows which part is which. Okay, so press Bake Selected Textures. This is going to take a little while, so I'll see you when it finishes. Okay, so it's done now, and let's click OK. And as you can see, we have all these details that we didn't before. Okay, so before creating any materials, I want to take this asset panel and just put it right here to the side. For me, it's a better way to work. Okay, and now I want to create some materials. So first, let's take a look at the concept art. And as you can see, basically we have 3 different colors: black, green, and yellow. So let's go to Layers and delete this basic layer. And first I want to create 3 folders, which I'm going to name black, yellow, and green. So now you have 3 different folders where we're going to store our materials. So first let's go to black and then select this icon right here. This creates a fill layer. And here we can change the color of the material. So as you can see, it changes all objects. So I'm going to choose black for now. And that's it. We can close the folder. Next, we have yellow. So click on the yellow folder. Again, layer. And for the yellow, I'm going to try and match something like in the art I provided. Okay, close it down. And the last one is green. Fill layer and base color. And it's supposed to be something more of a camo green, a camouflage green. Something like this, maybe a little darker, maybe a little bit colder, something like that. We can adjust the colors later on, but for now, this will be fine. So, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.